Hey, what's going on? It's your boy BT, and I came here to talk some boxing with the thousands of True School Sports subscribers. What's going on, guys? Now, this is going to be a bit of a longer video because this is a topic that I really wanted to talk about. Honestly, this is a video that I never intended to do. This is not based on any kind of news articles or anything like that. This is something that was sparked right after the fight between Andre Ward and Alexander Brand. I got upset about the performance. And I basically said that, regardless if Andre Ward beats Kovalev or not, and even if Kovalev beats Ward, that winner of that fight is not pound for pound number one. And the reason being is because of Roman Gonzalez. Now, I said that. Some people agreed. Many people disagreed. I tried to have honest conversations with the Ward fans. They didn't really give me any facts outside of their own opinion. They just said things like Ward won the Super 6, which we all know, but he has not done anything since then. I hit him with facts. So what this video is going to be about, for those of you who are not friends with me on Facebook, I'm going to kind of parrot some of those things that I said, and I'm going to also expand upon them as I go along. So let me start off by making this the main idea of this video. The main idea of this video is that Roman Gonzalez is the best fighter in boxing. It's not even close. And even if Andre Ward beats Sergey Kovalev in impressive fashion, it doesn't matter because his resume still doesn't hold a candle to Roman Gonzalez. Now, I will go on record, if you guys don't know, if this is your first time watching me, I'm going to go on record, and you already know this, that I'm a big Roman Gonzalez fan. This is not a secret to anybody who's watched this channel. I think the guy is great. I think he's got a chance to go down as one of the top 15 best boxers who ever lived. I give the guy high praise. Now, I'm going to try to keep my feelings out of this as much as possible, and I'm just going to stick to the facts and what's happened and what hasn't happened. Okay? So I'm going to go through systematically why I think Roman Gonzalez is the best fighter in boxing, regardless of who wins that fight. But this is more for if Andre Ward beats Kovalev, because this is what was argued against me. So I wanted to get this out there. And any of you guys out there who love Andre Ward can comment down below, can refute anything I say, and it's fair game. Okay? And another thing before I get started, I'm going to get Roman Gonzalez fight in LA. So any of you YouTube channels out there, you guys know what I'm talking about. I've done names many times, like I said, Boxing Ego, Dante's Boxing Nation, anybody in the YBC who sees me at the fight, you guys can stop me on the spot. If you want to have an honest, intellectual conversation about boxing, and you want to tell me why Ward is better than Roman Gonzalez, we can have that conversation. We can film it if you want. That's how confident I am in arguing this point. So with that being said, here is a lot of the reasons. Here's a couple of reasons why Roman Gonzalez's resume is better than Andre Ward's, regardless if he beats Kovalev. We'll start with bullet point number one. He has been active consistently throughout the course of his career. Now, we all know that Andre Ward has his promotional problems, but the level of activity that Roman Gonzalez has seen in his career is unmatched in boxing because, Ward has fought. This is the first time, 2016 against his two fights in 2016, which were against Barrera and Alexander Brand recently. It marks the first time since the Super 6 in 2012 that Ward has fought multiple times in the same year. And for that year, he fought Carl Froch and Chad Dawson, picking up two of the top 3 to 4 best wins of his career. So the level of inactivity has really hurt Ward. But even if he was active, like at a regular rate in comparison to most fighters, it wouldn't even matter because Gonzalez has fought at a bare minimum every single year for excluding 2009, I believe it is. I got it right here in front of me. 2009. Yeah, 2009 only fought 2 times, and but that came after a year in 2008 in which he fought 6 times. He's fought 6 times in 1 year, multiple times in his career. So that being said, there's those 2 years. You have 2000. He fights usually anywhere from 4 to 6 times a year. That is a high level of activity, and obviously, not all those guys are killers, but there are some really great names sprinkled in there. So that's number one, the activity. You can go look up his resume, and you can go verify that for yourself. Bullet point number 2 is going to be the fact that the best win Roman Gonzalez has in his resume, the best fighter he beat, was a more dominant champion than the best fighter Andre Ward beat. And I'm referencing for the best fighter Roman Gonzalez beat on his resume was Juan Francisco Estrada. I'm referencing him. The best fighter on Ward's resume that I'm referencing is Carl Froch. Now, both of these guys are great, fighters, guys that were on the pound for pound list. Both of them would go on, both Estrada and Froch in their respective weight classes would go on to become unified champions. The difference between both Froch and Estrada is that Froch, as a unified champion, he defended his title multiple times, but he only defended it twice. Estrada, on the other hand, he defended his belt 5 times as a unified champion, and it's after beating Roman Gonzalez, the toughest fight of his career, he's gotten better and has made progression as a fighter. And many people believe, not me, but many people believe that Estrada can beat Roman Gonzalez. And I'll make another video on that later on as to why that will not happen. Okay, so you stay tuned for that. But yeah, the best champion, the best fighter on Roman's resume at his weight class is more dominant than the best fighter Andre Ward has beat. Now, I think we can all come to an agreement that Carl Froch is the best fighter Ward's beat, because I don't think there's anybody out there that's going to say Kessler or Arthur Abraham or Chad Dawson or guys of that nature were better than Carl Froch. Carl Froch, like I said, been on the pound for pound list. He defended that title 2 times against a very, very game, undefeated, confident George Groves. Okay, and in the second fight, especially, Groves was boxing very well. He boxed very well in both fights. Honestly, if he never gets clipped those punches, he might have won one of those fights. So, with that being said, not an easy guy to beat, and but still not more. He was not more dominant than Juan Francisco Estrada, who has established himself as the second best flyweight in the world behind Gonzalez. Next bullet point as to why Roman Gonzalez is better than Andre Ward, even if he beats Kovalev. He never ducked anybody. Never ducked nor dodged anybody. He's beaten the #1 guy in every weight class he's been at. Ward, on the other hand, before the Super 6 started, and this is not something that I'm just pulling out of my behind. You guys can go look this up for yourself. There's clips of it on YouTube. If you comment down below and say, well, I can't find the damn clip, I'll show you the clips myself. I'll give you the link. Ward is on record saying before the Super 6 even started, before he won it, before he was the Super 6 champion and had all these great guys on his resume, he said that the winner of the tournament, so that's anybody, himself included, and anybody else in the tournament, that the winner of that tournament should fight Lucien Bute, who at the time was, I believe, the WBO champion, and had basically, I think he had like 6 or 7 title defenses against good opposition, and he didn't lose until he lost to Carl Froch. But Andre Ward said the winner of the Super 6 should fight Lucien Bute. For whatever reason, the fight never happened. So that is a duck, all right? If you say something like, if you make a statement like that, like, okay, if this happens, this person should fight this person, and you happen to be that person, and you don't fight that champion, that's a duck. Whether you think Andre Ward would have won that fight or not, that is a duck. Now, personally, I've said this, and when I was talking to Neil and Fernando, and I was schooling them on Boxing Tonight when they tried to come at me with that sideways with that weak stuff, I told them, I said, listen, I think if they would have fought, I think Andre Ward would have beat Lucien Bute. I think he would have been too skilled for him. Bute is a good, and at that time was a good puncher, but not really. I think Ward's roughhouse tactics, the way he was able to hit angles back then, he can't really do it like he did. He can't really do that now like he did back then. I think that would have been the difference in the fight. But the fight never happened, so that's on Andre Ward. That's not on Bute. So that's another. So there's that. Roman, on the other hand, fought, the best guys in his division, guys who are fringe pound-for-pound fighters, and he's earned his spot as #1 in the sport. So there's that. Now, I made a statement, and I'm gonna give you facts behind the statement, because I would talk to Neil when I was talking to Neil and Fernando on Facebook, because they were the main ones who were sitting there arguing with me all night. And by the way, while I'm talking about him, you can go check out Hoop Jab, go check out Behind the Gloves. I'm not hating on them. While they were talking to me about this whole, we had the back and forth, I made a statement. I said that, Roman Gonzalez, his win, forget everything else he's done. I said his win over Yutaka Nita is hands down better than anything Andre Ward has accomplished in his pro boxing career. Now, a lot of people don't know that name. Who the hell is Yutaka Nita? Well, Yutaka Nita was the #1 straw weight or minimum weight fighter in the world for 3 years. Well, #1 and #2. He kind of switched position in between that time. He was #1, #2, top 2 fighter for 3 years. He was #1 for 2 years, #2 for 1 year. So in that 3-year period, he was one of the guys, and he was the guy for multiple years in that division, and had made 7 title defenses against good opposition. He was 30 years old. Roman fought him. Roman was relatively young, hadn't had really any big fight experience. That was Roman's first big test. Dude is a freaking living legend in Japan. But like I said, that name doesn't really mean anything in America. Nobody knows that name. But like I said, if you take the time to do your research, you know that this guy was not a joke. Roman fought this guy who had made 7 title defenses, was the #1 and #2 guy in that time period, and he didn't just beat him. He didn't just destroy him. He retired this dude. This guy got knocked out in 4 rounds, and he retired not too long after that fight. So with that being said, if Andre Ward, let's just say, if Andre Ward was to go, if Andre Ward, let's say when he fought Carl Froch, because Carl Froch is a really good fighter. If you fought Froch or Mikkel Kessler, you fought one of those type of dudes in the Super 6, and he knocked them out in 4 rounds, and they retired not too long after the fight, you guys would be going crazy over that. But this is a little known fact that I had to shed light on, because this guy was a dominant champion. Roman fought him. He took on that challenge, and he was able to just destroy him. And Yutaka Nita, by the way, is a Hall of Fame caliber fighter. So there's that. Next bullet point is that he single-handedly brought attention to a weight division in boxing that traditionally doesn't even see the damn TV time. Doesn't get any TV time. As you guys know, the Flyweight Division, they do produce very exciting fights. The guy has a lot of punches. There's no ducking and dodging. You don't get the same diva stuff you get in other divisions. If there's a big, if the #1 wants to fight the #2, it usually happens in those divisions, and that's why you don't see a lot of undefeated records in that division, because these guys get put in tough. They fight a lot of times a year, and it's also, it can be a division where rivalries can happen, because when there's thousands, not hundreds, when there's thousands of punches being thrown in so many directions, one judge might see it one way, one judge might see it the other, and they can make the wrong decision. It happens. But nobody was talking about the Flyweight Division, or even anything below, I would say, featherweight, 126, 122. Nobody was talking about anything below that weight before Roman Gonzalez, and he was so good. He was so dominant. He beat so many good fighters that HBO eventually said that we got to get this guy in the air. We got to put him on the undercard for Golovkin. I believe it was Monroe, Golovkin Monroe. And not only that, just think about where Roman Gonzalez was at that time, being a guy who had to pay his dues, fighting in Japan, Nicaragua, all these different places. To finally get that shot, to be on American television, to be on HBO, a lot of guys could have folded under that. Pressure, because he wasn't like he was fighting some sort of tomato can in Edgar Sosa. Edgar Sosa, at the time, I will admit, he was a bit past his prime, but still at that time was a top 4 fighter in the division, a guy that had so much big fight experience, had won the WBC flyweight title, defended it 10 times against solid opposition, and had carved himself a Hall of Fame career out. Roman was able to go in the ring against that guy. He didn't just win that fight. He knocked the dude out in 2 rounds and made him look like a D-class fighter. People who don't pay attention to lower weight classes will said that Edgar Sosa was a bum, but further research shows that he is very far from a bum, and that he'll probably go to the Boxing Hall of Fame. So just the fact that we're even talking about a guy who's this small, from this low of a weight, who's fighting at this level, it's really a testament to what Gonzalez, how great he is, because, like I said, it's not a glamour division. It's not welterweight. It's not heavyweight. It's not the traditional divisions that you see on HBO or Showtime cards. This is the flyweight division. Exciting. Like, it does produce exciting fights, but it just doesn't get on TV for whatever reason. And you know, Roman's been able to bring attention to that division, and now look at him now. You know, I'm gonna be there. Thank God. You know, I'll be there in LA for that fight against Carlos Cuadras. He'll be trying to win a title to sports weight class, and he'll be the headline on HBO. I mean, who would have thought that? So there's that as well. But then last point, and this is really pretty simple. He's cleared three weight classes. He's cleared 3 weight classes. Now I know a lot of you are gonna say is, you know, because I've seen this in the comments. You know, well, that doesn't really mean anything because, you know, in the lower divisions, you know, the difference between weight classes is only 3 pounds. But you can say that, but that's still a whole new pool of guys. It's, you know, it's still a whole new different crop of guys that you have to beat, and they all have different styles and they all present different challenges. So for him to, regardless of what the weight is, for him to still go to those weight classes and still, regardless of who's in the division, beat the #1 guy. You know, if he does face a little bit of adversity, as he did against Estrada, as he did even in the Valoria fight for that little brief moment in time, you know, he's still got to overcome adversity, and he was able to do that, make adjustments. You know, so there's that, and you know, those are some of the brief bullet points. But you know, with Andre Ward, like I said, you know, you can't take away the fact that he won the gold medal. You know, that's listen. Winning a gold medal in the Olympics is probably harder to do than winning a world title in boxing. It definitely is. It definitely is. No doubt about it. So Andre Ward, his career, whether he does anything or not, you know, after this point, you know, it's been legitimized just off of that alone. So you can't take it away from him. You know, he did beat pound-for-pound fighters. He did, you know, carve out himself a really good career. He was very highly rated on the pound-for-pound list. He still is by some people, even if I think it's unjust. You know, he still is. But with that being said, he hasn't dominated at that level that Roman Gonzalez has been at. I mean, I mentioned the best fighter on Roman's resume, and I compared it to the best fighter on Andre's resume. The fact of the matter is, I can compare the 3rd or 4th best fighter on Roman's resume to the best fighter Andre beat, and it's still, it could hold a candle, which gives credence to Roman and what he's doing. You know, I mentioned Yutaka Onita earlier, the Japanese minimum weight fighter who was a champion. He was like I said, from 2005 to 2007, he was the #1 or #2 strawweight. The only guy within that 3 to 4 year period that was above him was a guy by the name of Ivan Calderon. Some of you may remember Ivan Calderon. He was a really good fighter at that weight. And Ivan Calderon cracked the pound-for-pound list in 2008. I think he topped out around #9 or 8 when I checked that year. So this is Yutaka Onita was a pound-for-pound caliber fighter. Maybe he didn't get that recognition from Golden Boy or Ring Magazine because he was a Japanese fighter or whatever, but he was that caliber of fighter, and Roman was able to dominate him at a really high level. So there's Onita. I mentioned Yutaka Onita. I mean, then I want to address this particular opponent Roman had, because when this fight happened, and this was, you know, the 2nd fight for Roman in America, probably the biggest one out of all of them, I'd say, as far as, you know, the event and the venue, that being Brian Valoria, which was who he fought on the Golovkin undercard, and you know, you had channels like Dante's Boxing Nation, Boxing Ego, all these guys saying that, you know, who was Brian Valoria? That this is not a fair fight. This is a mismatch. This is this and this is that. Listen, let me tell you something about Brian Valoria. Like I'll say about Edgar, like I said about Edgar Sosa earlier, he was not in his prime either when he fought Roman Gonzalez. But in no way, shape, or form did he not have enough gas in the tank to be a threat to Roman Gonzalez. In fact, if you watch that fight, Roman swept the first 8 rounds, but in the 9th round, Valoria hit Roman with a body shot, and if you watched, Roman was stunned. You could even hear Roy Jones and Kellerman saying Roman was stunned, and Roman's legs kind of lost a little steam, and he had to recover, and there was a period of time where he had to be very cautious, because if he wasn't, Valoria could have got him out of there. Now, about Valoria, Brian Valoria was a guy that clearly established himself throughout the course of his career, a decade or so, as the 3rd best, you know, flyweight of this era, behind Roman Gonzalez and Estrada, because those are the only 2 guys he ever lost to, were the best in the division. Outside of those 2 guys who are going to go to the Hall of Fame one day, he's better than everybody else. And I'll tell you how good Brian Valoria was if you don't know. Now, for those of you who don't follow the lower weight classes, Brian Valoria fought a guy by the name of Giovanni Segura. If you don't know who Giovanni Segura is, Giovanni Segura at that weight, at that particular weight, pound for pound, is one of the hardest punches in boxing. 76% knockout percentage. The guy is a threat to anybody who is in that division. Valoria fought Segura. Okay, Valoria fought Segura as an underdog that fight, and he beat him. He beat Segura, but coming into that fight, Segura was ranked number 9 pound for pound. Do you guys want to take a guess at who he was ranked ahead of? Who was number 10? It was Andre Ward. So Roman beat guys who were ahead of Andre Ward on the pound for pound list in his Super 6 days. So I mean, just do your research, guys. Segura wasn't a joke. Valoria was far from a joke, and he was the unified champion himself. So definitely a worthy opponent for Gonzalez. I mean, I would even venture to say that Valoria, you could make the argument, and I'm not saying that he is, but I'm saying there's a valid argument you can make that Valoria is a better opponent, was a better fighter, okay, than Carl Froch. And here's why I'll say that, because Brian Valoria is more multifaceted than Carl Froch. Brian Valoria beat somebody who was actually ahead of Andre Ward on the pound for pound list. I mean, and honestly, Valoria clearly established himself as the 3rd best fighter of his era in the flyweight division, behind, like I said, Gonzalez and Estrada. So there's a valid argument to be made there. So there's that opponent. Then there was McWilliams Arroyo. You guys said, oh, Roman fought a guy with only 19 professional fights. Oh my God. And you guys, a lot of you criticized McWilliams Arroyo, didn't know much about him, but he was an Olympian for Puerto Rico in the Olympics. McWilliams Arroyo, I believe it was 2 fights before he fought Roman. He fought Amnat Rudenrong, the Thailand fighter. In Thailand, he went to his hometown. It's kind of like if a fighter now would go to Oakland to fight Andre Ward, or go to Omaha to fight Terrence Crawford. It's one of those type of things. Or Vegas to fight Mayweather. It's one of those type of things where you gotta knock them out to get the win. Now, the fight, I'm gonna go on record because I'm gonna be objective. I have not watched that fight, so I'm not gonna sit here and say that McWilliams Arroyo got robbed. But everybody that I know that's watched that fight, says that Arroyo got robbed, blind, like that he clearly won the fight. So eventually one of these days I'll watch the fight and I'll review it on here. But if that is true, then Roman beat that guy who should have been the IBF flyweight champion. And Roman didn't knock him out. I mean, credit to Arroyo. Arroyo was the first guy in 11 fights that Roman Gonzalez didn't knock out. So what does that tell you about Arroyo? That should give credence to Arroyo. He didn't get the decision against Rudenrong, but still, that's another good opponent that Roman has on his resume. If I want to go through Ward's resume, I mean, look, he beat Chad Dawson. Is Chad Dawson a solid fighter? No doubt about it. Was Chad Dawson once a pound-for-pound fighter? No doubt about it. But Andre Ward didn't go up to 175 to fight Chad Dawson, where that's his natural weight, where he's comfortable, where Chad Dawson would be the most dangerous. No, Chad Dawson came to 168, killed himself, and his punch resistance suffered majorly because of it, and Andre Ward beat him very badly. And we all know that Andre Ward had never, in the course of his whole career, had power. So don't tell me that at 175 he would have stopped Dawson, because we all know, anybody who's watched Dawson, anybody who's watched Ward knows that probably wouldn't have been the case. But he beat Dawson, so it's on his resume. But I'm just saying. So there's that. Then you had, this last fight. I want to talk about this last fight because I talked about it a little bit, but I really, really want to dig into it. Alexander Brand. And now I'm kind of all over the place right now, but I'm just going with whatever comes to my mind. Alexander Brand. I mean, I see like I knew what was gonna happen after the fight. Like I knew how the fight was gonna play out. I knew what happened after, as far as like what Ward would say, what YouTube channels would say. So honestly, the fight to me, almost watching it was a waste of time. Although I did catch the last 2 rounds. Ward won 12 to nothing like I thought because I didn't think he was going to be aggressive enough to stop Brand. And then after he did that, you have channels out there that tried to rationalize him going 12 with a guy that everybody knows is not a very good fighter. And they say, oh, well, he's this Colombian amateur with 400 fights. He's ridiculously awkward. I mean, nobody's ever stopped him. He went 12 with Badu Jack, and honestly, I actually, unlike a lot of people who say things like that, the other night I took about, I'm gonna say 20 to 25 minutes. I watched about half of that Badu Jack Alexander Brand fight, and honestly, when you watch that fight, the Badu Jack then is not the Badu Jack of today. It's not the Badu Jack that beat George Groves, and it's not the Badu Jack that's a champion now. That Badu Jack was younger, less experienced, and just didn't really, he wasn't grounded in himself as far as like identity as a fighter. And so to say that, I mean, you're saying that about Badu Jack like he's the Badu Jack of today, and he's not. He wasn't when he fought Brand, so let's not go there. But outside of that, Brand was never a title contender. Brand was never a top 15 caliber guy, and we know that. We know that he has some of the worst punch technique you ever see in boxing. And Ward being the pound for pound talent that not just that I thought he was. I may not think he's a pound for pound. I won't put him on my pound for pound list now because of his inactivity and his lack of quality wins recently. But I do think he is a pound for pound talent. I just think it's been wasted. I was very disappointed that he didn't stop Brand, and I'm not. That doesn't give credence to Brand. That's not because Brand is this ridiculously awkward fighter. He is a ridiculously awkward fighter, but that's not why he didn't get the stoppage. He didn't get the stoppage because the Andre Ward that you guys think still exists, the guy from the Super Six, the guy that beat Frost, that beat Kessler, that beat all these guys to make his name, that's not the guy that was in the ring that night. And it wasn't that wasn't the guy that we saw in the Barrera fight. That wasn't the guy we saw in the Paul Smith fight. That guy is gone. And I'll tell you why he's gone. The reason he's gone is because, number one, the lack of activity. That's going to cost you, right? When you have that level of inactivity, your defense won't be as tight, and certain little nuances of the sweet science, they just deteriorate over time. You got to stay active. He doesn't really work angles like he used to. He does still tie guys up. He does still have those same roughhouse Bernard Hopkins-like tactics, but those aren't, those things you still do. The way he used to shift angles and create his openings to render his opponents ineffective, he can't do it at that level anymore like he did against Froch or Kessler. And that's the biggest reason why he was not able to knock out Brand. If the Andre Ward from the Super 6 fought Brand, I believe he would have stopped him. I think so. But this Andre Ward is more. He does sit down a little bit more on his punches, but the thing is, with Ward, the way he slaps with a lot of his punches. So even though he doesn't have a lot of power, he's not even getting the maximum level of power because he's not punching you. There's no straight punches. He's hitting you here. He's hitting you like this, but they're not straight punches that are hitting you with his knuckles, and that's costing him. And it's going to cost him big against Sergey Kovalev. You're going to see. So yeah, that's inexcusable. You can't be a pound for pound fighter or a guy that many people perceive as a pound for pound king and then go 12 rounds with a guy who is 39 years old, who took the fight on 3 weeks' notice, who is not even ranked in the top 35 in his own weight class. You can't do that. You can't. I don't care what you're wrestling. You could say, well, he wanted to get his rounds in. That's fine, but at some point you got to make a statement and you got to get him out there in the 8th, the 9th round. I could see if Ward wanted to get his rounds in, he could have, but he decided that he'd rather punch, throw a couple punches and carry him the whole fight and cruise to easy decision, which is fine, but for him. But if you're trying to be a pound for pound king, that's inexcusable. So that really was a huge eye opener for me as someone who's been looking at Ward recently. As for the other guys he fought in his comeback, we'll talk about Barrera. I like Sullivan Barrera. I met him here in South Florida. Nice guy. I even made videos about him how he switched trainers from Abel Sanchez. Now he's working with Derek Santos. A lot of you guys didn't know who Derek Santos was. I did know who Derek Santos was. I told you about Derek Santos. Derek Santos works with he's basically like John David Jackson's assistant. So he works with Kovalev a little bit. He works with Steve Jaffard, who's a prospect. So I think Barrera's in good hands. I think his career, if he's applies himself, should get better. But at the time Ward fought Barrera, he was, I think, roughly had. It's kind of like when Gonzalez fought. It's not really when it's not like when Gonzalez fought Arroyo, but it is in the sense that Barrera and Arroyo had the same amount of professional fights. Barrera had, he's a Cuban amateur, which I see a lot of people out there try to say, oh, well, he's this amazing Cuban amateur. Roy Jones Jr. and many people who have been around Barrera, who know Barrera, will tell you themselves he is not like one of those Guillermo Rigondeaux, Gioris Gamboa type of Cuban amateurs. He was a decent, domestic amateur, but he wasn't like one of those amazing Cuban amateurs. So that being said, he was the #1 contender. Take that for what it's worth. I mean, I really don't take him being the #1 contender that worth that much because he had no big fight experience. The best guy he fought before Ward was Carl Marat. Most of you might remember Carl Marat from fighting Renard Hopkins. Marat was a good, durable guy, but as far as his skill set goes, he's a C-class fighter. That was the best guy Barrera fought before he fought Ward. So I don't really look at that win as great as other people in the boxing world do, although he did what he had to do. The Paul Smith fight was a joke. Honestly, the Paul Smith fight was a joke because, but this time, honestly, it really wasn't on Ward because he would have been the perfect opponent for Ward had he come into the fight in shape, but he didn't. He made a joke of himself and the fight in general and came in very overweight, and we just got a dud. So that one I won't put fully on Ward, but he's had a less than stellar resume outside of the Super 6. I mean, for you Ward fans out there, honestly, just tell me anything outside of the Super 6, right? Anything outside of the Super 6 that can compare to Roman Gonzalez' like third best win. So I'll say his third best win is probably Brian Viloria. What's the best thing outside of the Super 6 for Andre Ward that can compare to Brian Viloria? There isn't. You can't. There isn't. I mean, Brian, like I said, I told you how good Brian Viloria was earlier. He beat Giovanni Segura as the underdog. Giovanni Segura was #9 pound-for-pound ahead of Andre Ward. You can look that up for yourself. And if you don't want to look it up, just tell me in the comments and I'll send you the link so you can see it for yourself. You can't. So it's not even a matter of me being a Gonzalez fan or me not liking Ward. I mean, I am a huge Gonzalez fan and I don't like Ward that much. I respect him, but I'm not a huge fan of his fighting style. I think he's a bit I think he's very overrated. But outside of that, just give me something that gives credence to Ward being better than Gonzalez. I mean, if somebody can, great. But outside of the Super 6, Ward has done nothing. Now, if he beats Kovalev, that's a great win. Kovalev will go down as, I believe, when it's all said and done, I think Kovalev's going to go down as an all-time great at light heavyweight. So if he wins, amazing win. That definitely puts Andre Ward at, for sure, top 3, possibly 2, depending on what happens between now and then. But while that's a great win and that's definitely something great, you got to understand, Roman's cleared out 3 weight classes. He's beaten the best guys in every division. He beat Estrada, who you could argue is the best Mexican fighter in the world today, who I've heard plenty of people in the YTBC and in boxing circles put on their own pound-for-pound list, and I would too. He's beaten, what's his name, Viloria, like I said, who beat a guy who was ahead of Andre Ward on the pound-for-pound list, and clearly the third best fighter of that era at that weight, behind Estrada. So he beat him. He beat Yuta Kaneda, who's a legend at minimum weight, made 7 title defenses, was the #1 minimum weight fighter for 3 years. Only Ivan Calderon, who was a pound-for-pound fighter, was ahead of him at that time. So he himself was a pound-for-pound caliber fighter. There's Takayama, who I don't remember his first name because I can't pronounce it, but there's Takayama, who was a top 10 fighter. He beat him as well. He beat Arroyo, who in the eyes of many should have been the champion, and made that fight relatively easy. And now he's going up to his 4th weight class, and he's not he's not taking a tune-up. He's taking on Carlos Cuadras, and while he is the favorite in that fight, Cuadras isn't a gimme. Cuadras isn't a guy that he's just gonna walk over. This guy is, if you watch the press conference, this guy is naturally bigger than Gonzalez. This guy is a devastating puncher at that weight. This guy has 27 knockouts in 35 fights. He's the WBC champion at that weight. He's the #2 fighter in that division. So this is not a gimme. This is a very hard fight for Roman. And if he's able to go in there and look good, then if he's able to go in there and have a dominant performance, and in the process capture his 4th title in a different weight class, another world title in his 4th different weight class, I mean, that's something that I know means a lot to Roman, because his mentor, God rest his soul, Alexis Arguello, never even did that himself. He failed 2 times against Aaron Pryor in controversial fights. So I know that means a lot to him, and I know he's going to be very locked in for this fight. I mean, that's just, a lot of the stuff he's doing right now, to actually legitimately, not, pick up a title and move up after one fight, but legitimately, you get a title, you beat the guy, you defend it against good opposition, then you move up. He's defended his belt, I believe, 2 or 3 times in every division before he moves up, and he's did it against good competition. Not a lot of guys in boxing doing that right now. And somebody made a comparison to Adrian Broner, which is crazy because Broner fought the likes of guys like Vicente Escobedo and Gavin Reese and guys that really are not relevant now, weren't relevant then, and it's just a joke. But I've laid out the facts for you guys. You guys can fact check me on anything I've said, because I've done my research. If you want the links, I'll give them to you. But yeah, Andre Ward is my final closing statement is this: Andre Ward is a, well, I don't want to say he's a great fighter now, because honestly I don't think he's a great fighter now. I think he's a solid fighter. I think he beats most of the guys at 175, but when it comes to the guys like Kovalev, Stevenson, and Arthur Beterbiev, those are the guys that I consider 3 best at that weight class. I don't think he beats any one of those guys, honestly. So I think he's a good guy. I think he's one of the, at 175, he's a middle of the pack light heavyweight. At 168, I believe he could probably, if he could make 168 again, I believe he could probably win that division, because that division's not very stacked right now. Honestly, if he was at 168, this would be the perfect time to him. 168 would be the perfect for him if he could make the weight, because it's not very stacked. It's literally just Badou Jack and James DeGale. And I think he would rule that division as long as he wanted to if he could make the weight. But he's a good fighter. Don't think he's a great fighter. And I think honestly, people are still living in 2011, 2012 when they look at Andre Ward, because it's ridiculously crazy to me how you can watch him fight right now and not see how he's declined as a fighter. I mean, go watch the Kessler or Froch fight, and then go watch his fight against Barrera or Brand or Paul Smith. I know the opposition is ridiculously different, but just look at some of the subtleties that have changed about him. He doesn't hit angles like he used to. He doesn't have the lateral quickness he used to have. He has declined, okay? And not only has declined, he's not really beaten anybody since the Super 6. And it's hard for me to say, as a boxing fan, that he is better than someone who has gone through 3 weight classes and beaten the best guys at every single weight. I mean, the problem I see here, and I'm going to end with this, I promise. The problem I see with this Roman Gonzalez Andre Ward thing, and why people don't want to really embrace Gonzalez, is because he just, in the American consciousness of the boxing public, the American boxing public, he just entered our consciousness probably last summer for most people, and we didn't get to see him as a prospect. We didn't get to see him develop. So it's not like when we saw Andre Ward. We got to see Andre Ward in the Olympics. We saw Andre Ward as a prospect. We saw Andre Ward in the Super 6. We're seeing Andre Ward now, or even other guys like Golovkin or Terrence Crawford. We didn't have that luxury because HBO hadn't made the deal yet to bring him here. He was in Japan. He was in Nicaragua. So that's why I think the disconnect happens. That and the fact that his weight class is dominated by guys who, for the most part, aren't American. The lower weight classes are dominated by fighters from Mexico and Japan and other Latin countries. So that's why I think that's why people aren't so quick to embrace Gonzalez. But like I said, when you go and you look at what his opponents did after they beat him after he beat them before he beat them, what they would go on to become, what they were, you'll see that he's beaten Roman Gonzalez. If you look at it, he's beaten probably 4 Hall of Famers, and those 4 Hall of Famers being Estrada, Valoria, Yutaka Nita, and then crap, I can't remember the other one. But Taka, Valoria, Estrada, and then the other guy's name. Can't remember right now, but like 4 Hall of Famers at least. So yeah, I mean, Ward, he beat Froch, and that's really the only Hall of Famer he has. I mean, Dawson's not a Hall of Famer, Caster's not a Hall of Famer. Good fighters in their time, but not Hall of Fame fighters. So that's what it is. So I've laid it out for you guys. If you guys have anything you want to say, leave it in the comments down below. I mean, really, I don't know what you could say, outside of anything that pertains to the Super 6, because that's really where Andre Ward's career begins and ends, as far as like what he's done at the highest level. After that and before that, it's really just him either becoming a champion or him, trying to get back to what he was in the Super 6. So it's an oxymoron. His career is just one continuous oxymoron to me. But let me know what you guys think. Roman Gonzalez, why I think he's still going to be, why he still should be the pound for pound #1, even if Andre Ward beats Sergey Kovalev. But there you go, guys. Leave your comments down below. Take the time to subscribe, and you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Dania. So until next time, take care, guys.